Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine. Today I'm here with another topic. Today I would like to talk a bit about the difference between healthy boundaries and emotional walls and avoidance strategies. Well, there are a lot of stuff and helpful materials out there about boundaries and importance of feeling safe and assertive enough to set boundaries and being clear about our needs in our relationships. So I'm not going to talk about how to set boundaries specifically here, but the point I would like to bring up here is on how to distinguish between a healthy boundary and unhealthy one, or a defense wall. While we may set healthy emotional boundaries, we can also set up big firm walls for defending ourselves from a threat in our surroundings. Our interactional space can be influenced by defensiveness and use of avoidance strategies, as well as healthy boundaries. Both are intricate part of human psychological functioning. While boundaries are meant to be there to proactively take care of our mental health, defense mechanisms and avoidance strategies are like walls which will pop up when these boundaries, these healthy boundaries, are exposed to danger or threat. That is why the more acknowledgement and respect are dedicated to our authentic boundaries, the less likely become the defensiveness to take place. You might know that boundaries have a protective function and are supposed to help us feeling safe and not overwhelmed by others' emotional reactions. So if you have the skill of setting boundaries, it means that you are clear and have been able to express your expectations and explain them on how other people can treat you. You have got concrete, well-formulated and clear definitions of what you mean, that it's important for you, and you are also aware that these boundaries are about you and are not there to control the other person. In addition, you hold a reasonable level of flexibility with your expectations if necessary. It means that you are aware of the fact that the other person is just like you and needs to, have his own boundaries, also unique ways of defining personal and emotional boundaries. This makes you prepared to be resilient, flexible and focused on collaboration and maintaining mutual understanding. So if we don't have such emotional boundaries, we can get overwhelmed, right? Or even manipulated by other people's emotional reactions and meanings. And then we may, in absence of healthy boundaries, will need some substitutes such as defense strategies to protect ourselves against harm. So these mechanisms will function as shields to protect us, but we tend to understand them as our authentic boundaries. The healthier your boundaries are, the more you will act flexibly in managing your relationships. It means that boundaries are found in a spectrum from being too loose to too strict. We need to have a relative space in the middle of the spectrum. There lies the healthy boundaries, which give us the opportunity to be assertive and able to express our needs without feeling guilty. And also that our unique, flexible boundaries give us a sense of identity on who we are and what are our values and how we allow other people to treat us. When we have healthy emotional boundaries, we have also a clear sense of who we are and how much information about ourselves and our private life we want to share with others, right? But weak and not healthy boundaries will make you so vulnerable in social interactions, and you get somewhat passive and even don't dare to ask for what you want or talk about what you don't like, what your values are, and so on. So people pleasers, for example, have often weak boundaries and tend to sacrifice their comfort and needs for other people. So they tend also to overshare and to over-explain. It's like you don't even know when to start telling and when to stop. There is no limit and sense of boundary on how to manage a conversation. for many people pleasers. So you will constantly seek validation from others, and if you feel that you are not liked and approved by others, you get disappointed. And on the other end point of that spectrum, there is you with very rigid and firm boundaries, who barely share information about yourself with others, keeping everything secretly for yourself. And you may even have trust issues and cannot find people loyal and trustworthy, and may get suspicious toward people quickly. And you may also prefer shallow relationships with no or little space, emotional depth. But the fact is that these are your walls and not authentic, smooth, flexible, and healthy boundaries. Such boundaries lack flexibility and nuanced approach according to that specific situation, and may function as walls, as mentioned, which tend to automatically raise in situations where you subconsciously notice a sign for threat and unpleasant feeling. It means that your nervous system goes on a survival mode in order to protect you at that specific situation. You need these walls for protection against harm because you had experienced emotional distress and harm by similar situations before, probably when your boundaries were violated by other people. So these are your protective walls, not healthy boundaries. This is a place for misunderstanding for many people, because in both scenarios you are driven by a real will and desire to feel safe, and that you are respected by the other person, right? And that your surroundings are safe. But when you feel unsafe because you are triggered, then your system will go on a protection mode instead. Then, for example, your whole focus will become maintaining control over situation or the other persons, and keep the other person away from yourself, for example. In close relationships, protective mechanisms will also affect your ability to be vulnerable and intimate with your partner, for example, or that it makes you refuse to share anything personal with your partner or your friends. This may make relationship prone to falling apart at the end, because by weak boundaries, you will not be able to provide emotional safety in your relationship. So I understand that for many people it is not easy to figure out boundary versus defense wall, because people are used to automatically protect themselves from perceived threat by setting unflexible boundaries which do not necessarily define themselves and their need for connection and safety. And please remember that boundaries are supposed to be about you and your values and your needs. In other words, they depart from your inner world and a safe base within you, while avoidance walls depart from your insecure base and are fueled by survival and protection need. Just ask yourself how I feel when I register the need to say or do something in a special situation. Do I feel an unpleasant feeling because I feel threatened or unsafe and my system goes immediately into a survival mode, or that I feel grounded and safe inside, and based on such inner safety I need to express myself and inform about my values and desires on a specific situation. What is actually going on here? How I'm feeling right now? If you frequently end up answering yourself that your need to set boundaries is mostly about fear and maintaining control, it is most probably the avoidance wall and protective strategy, and not a healthy authentic boundary. Well, there are a lot to say about boundaries and differences between boundaries and protective mechanisms, but I assume that many people mistake a protection need with a healthy boundary, and that is why I have decided to talk a bit about this topic today. Because if we become aware of our patterns and the relational context in which our control needs get activated, then it will be much more easier to help ourselves to catch triggering situations and ground ourselves instead of running survival strategies. I hope that this piece of reflection will give you some insight about importance of having healthy boundaries. Please share this message with your friends and keep in touch. Thank you.